Hi guys, and welcome to the 2012 anniversary edition of Skyrim Mod Sanctuary, Part 4. In the first 3 parts of this video, we saw how the modding community really got to grips with Skyrim even without the creation kit and started producing great mods almost immediately. We saw them progress, we saw them evolve, and the mods changing and becoming more sophisticated. And with so many great mods coming out, I was spoiled for choice. Now in Skyrim Mod Sanctuary Part 25, the first mod I covered was Realistic Lighting with Customization. And as I'd already mentioned, this was the follow-on to the Realistic Lighting without Post-Processing mod. I found it to be, as expected, a great improvement over the vanilla game. Very little effect on my performance, and it did have a few extra little features, including better rain, slightly better storm sound effects, etc. The next mod I covered was HD Textures DLC Fix. This was a fix for a couple of small problems with the HD DLC that Bethesda shipped for free. There were a few problems like glowing orange logs and strange purple wood blocks. And this mod fixed it, so again, this is still a mod I'm using today. The next mod was Shadow Striping Fix, and this one was one that fixed these horrible stripy shadows you got in places like Breezehome. But that file is now hidden. However, there are some alternatives if you search them on the Nexus website, and for me, you still need this because apparently Bethesda have still not fixed this problem. And the last mod I covered in that video was Better Whiterun City Under Construction. Now in a previous video I'd shown a mod that made Whiterun a lot more beautiful and busier as well, but this one had a different approach. It basically made Whiterun look like a city under siege. A city that was basically building up its battlements, increasing the size of its gates, and so on. It gave you a feeling of a city preparing for war, which was very nice indeed. It also made it a little busier. It added quite a lot of new little areas, little features, and just in general made the city feel more crowded and yet larger. This mod has been updated a few times since I covered it, and apparently now includes interiors as well, so I'm going to be checking that out soon. Now for part 26 I started with another lighting mod, and people were probably getting a bit fed up of lighting mods by then, but there were so many of them coming out and everybody wanted me to cover them. This one was the ultra realistic world lighting for Skyrim. There had been an ultra realistic world lighting for Fallout New Vegas, and I believe for Fallout 3 as well, although that's just going off memory. And basically it makes the light a lot more saturated, a lot more vibrant. It gives the world a far more sort of mystical, colourful look. It really does suit the fantasy world actually. It suits Skyrim quite a lot, especially if you like to take screenshots. If you're using a depth of field mod as well, this really does bring out all the colours. Now although it's called ultra realistic world lighting, it is not realistic, and the mod author is not really claiming it to be either. It's a name that's a hangover from a previous mod in a previous game. There is perhaps a little too much saturation for most people, myself included. However, it works really well in conjunction with something like the Imaginator, so you can reduce the saturation levels. I used this for my Let's Play for quite some time actually, and I really did like this lighting. I also covered 2 mods called Lanterns of Skyrim. One was called Lanterns of Skyrim Around Cities, and the other one was Lanterns of Skyrim Bridges. And they did pretty much what they say. They added lanterns around the roads, around bridges, but only around the roads near to cities. And this is quite a nice idea actually. It definitely made nights a little bit more interesting, especially again when you were near to cities or bridges. It didn't look out of place. It looked perfectly sort of lore friendly, and for some reason it also, especially if you were using a mod that changed lights and made sort of very dark nights. It gave you a point of reference, it gave you some beacon of light to head towards, something to guide you towards roads. I really liked these mods. And lastly in that video I covered Expanded Winterhold Destruction Ruins. And this mod just basically changed Winterhold completely and added so many more ruins. It added a load of buildings and things that had slipped off the cliff. It added a huge big wall. It gave the city of Winterhold a far more Game of Thrones feel, definitely. This big huge wall defending it. And it also added a quest and a dungeon to go crawling through to complete this quest. So really nice mod actually. Still going, still worth downloading, and not as endorsed as I thought it would be actually. For me, this is one of those mods that I would have expected to have a few thousand endorsements by now. I still think this is a great mod. And part 27. Part 27 was all about followers. Now, I had really never used followers in Skyrim before. In fact, generally I've avoided followers in most of the games made by Bethesda. Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, and so on. I like playing a lone character. But for my Let's Play, I had decided I would try something completely new and something I had no idea how to play, and that was a character that really did need followers, a leader type character, and I wanted to have multiple followers. And so of course I ended up picking one of the many great follower overhaul mods, and the one I picked was the UFO, Ultimate Follower Overhaul. Now, not only did this mod allow you to have more than one follower, it also gave you more options. You could train them up so they matched your level. You could change their clothing. You could actually remove the default clothing they had and force them to wear what you wanted them to wear, which was quite nice actually. It gave you a whole range of extra features, extra commands, and even some commands that were shout based. You could sort of shout flee to all your followers and they would all flee, which are nice little additions like that. Oh, and then next mod, follower trap safety. Oh, this is an essential mod if you've got followers. There's absolutely nothing worse than avoiding all the traps and then having your followers activate them and get themselves killed, or worse, get you killed. This just basically gives all of your followers the light step perk, so they do not activate any traps and will not be killed by them unless you do something stupid and activate the trap just as they're following you, as I have been known to do. Sorry, Jazago. Oh, and lastly, for this video, Move It, Damn It for NPC companions and followers. A great name. This is just one of those mods that helps you maneuver around small spaces with your followers, because they block you all the time and you're supposed to rush into them to push them away, but they sort of respond very slowly and only move a small distance away. This mod just makes them respond faster and move further away. Very useful indeed. Now, part 28 I was pretty excited about actually. The first mod I covered was Clarolux, More and Brighter Lights. This is a mod made by a friend of mine, and I've been looking forward to something like this for Skyrim for some time. This mod, it added lanterns like the previous mods I mentioned in an earlier video. It added torches in places around the game, and it added a few bonfires, so there were a lot more light sources in game. But it also made the lights a little brighter. It increased the radiuses of those lights, so you got far more out of your lights, which was great if you were using a Dark Nights mod and so on. I love this mod, still use it to this day, still, you know, one of my favourite mods. And I also covered Scenic Carriages, which is a great mod for immersion. It essentially stops the carriages being these instant fast travel things. Well, it doesn't stop it, because you can still do that, but it allows you to take the carriage, climb in the back, sit on it, and watch the land go by, and in fact even get attacked. This is a really good mod for immersion. However, if you're using something like war zones, one of the big problems with this mod is you do tend to find the carriages go travelling straight through a bunch of major battles, which is going to get you and your followers completely killed unless you're exceptionally high level. Because, I mean, you can get off the carriage, kill whatever's in the way, and then get back on and carry on your journey, but you can't avoid them. And apparently none of the carriage drivers have heard of these battles and don't know how to drive around them. So, you know, you may have some issues if you're using this mod or alongside a mod that adds new encounters along the roads. But it's a great mod. It definitely adds to the immersion, and it also helps you discover places you might not have discovered. If you use the carriages in their normal fast travel mode, you simply teleport between two spots, and everything between there you don't discover. Using scenic carriages, you discovered all the places in between. I still love this mod. And so we move on to part 29, and the first mod I covered in that one was the Skyrim monster mod. Now that mod is a very ambitious mod. It adds a lot of new creatures, a lot of new monsters to Skyrim. I'm not actually totally sure how many, but it was at least 60 or 70 when I tried it. It's probably more by now. And some of them are extremely unique. He's used a lot of the existing meshes, altered them slightly to make some very interesting creatures. Now a lot of them were not lore friendly. They came from other games actually. However, there have been several patches and several alternative plugins that will actually remove those, so you could just have the ones that suit the Skyrim world, the Elder Scrolls world. It is not necessarily a mod I would suggest for your first playthrough, because it does add a lot of creatures that don't really belong in Skyrim. However, if you've played once or twice through and you're looking to shake things up, make Skyrim a little bit more interesting, definitely want to check out. And the next mod was Skytest, Realistic Animals and Predators. And this essentially just changed the sort of basic creatures like wolves, rabbits, deer, etc. to behave more realistically. It improved their AI a lot, so they would hunt in packs, or they would even mate apparently on occasion. I never did see that, but apparently they would do that. They would go to drink water from a nearby water source, I think once a day. Rabbits would scavenge cabbages, etc. It's the sort of mod you don't really notice directly, but somehow enhances the game in a way that's very immersive. I did notice once I uninstalled it that I was looking at some of the creatures and thinking they were behaving stupidly now. So definitely still one of the mods I would definitely recommend. And the next mod was Einithar's Lantern, which essentially allowed you to craft a handheld lantern. Very similar to a torch really, you'd hold it as a light source. Great idea, you had to craft it and you had to find certain ingredients to craft it with. Very simple really. If you prefer crawling through dungeons with a lantern rather than a torch, this mod is for you. Now the next mod is the Wearable Lanterns mod, and this is actually extremely popular, a lot more popular than the previous mod, and that is essentially because it's wearable lanterns. You can take the lantern and wear it on your belt. This means it does not take up one of your hands, so you could still have your sword and your shield. You just hang the lantern on your belt and you have a light source. Genius idea, just absolutely superb idea, still very popular, and obviously, you know, if you don't have night vision or you don't have a magic spell, absolutely brilliant mod. I mean, definitely must have for me. And the last mod I covered in that was Sustained Spell. Very simple idea really. Certain spells such as Candlelight, Iron Flesh, you don't keep casting them. It automatically recasts them when they run out. It doesn't use magicka, but it does reduce the rate at which you regain magicka, just to balance it. And it works really well. So it's not overpowered because it reduces your regeneration rate. And less hassle. And we move on to part 30. Now, part 30, the first mod I covered was basically a mod I'd really asked for in one of my Let's Plays. I'd commented on how I really wanted a mod that added a spell that would conjure a horse. We didn't have that. Before Dawnguard, that didn't exist. And somebody sent me a link and said, there is one. Here it is. It might have even been the mod author. I can't remember exactly. And said, no, there is one. Check it out. And I checked it out and it did exactly what I'd asked for, really. It conjured a summonable horse. Sorry, obviously it's summonable. It conjured a rideable horse. Brilliant. Looked great. Very interesting. Was actually quite fast as well. And great mod. I also covered a mod called Dragonhide Robes, and I liked this one because I was doing a magic playthrough and I was not actually using magic user robes, I was using heavy armor, but it did occur to me that one of the things that was missing for magic characters who use robes is something to make from all the dragon bones they had, and this mod did it. It gives you magician's robes, wizard robes, but with dragon bones on them. And we come to two great mods that increase the amount of things you can carry, which is always something that's useful, right? The first one was Saber Gear Backpack, which was a very interesting backpack. It looks very realistic, it looks very functional, gives you the sort of look and feel of an adventurer travelling through Skyrim and increases how much you can carry. Not a lot else to say about it. And then there was the Bandolier Bags and Pouches mod, which added a lot of different little bags, side pouches, and so on. A bandolier, and you could really increase the amount you could carry, especially if you use these two together. Both great mods still. Now for part 31 I focused on horse mods, and the reason for that was we just had a patch that allowed mounted combat, which was great fun. And I covered 4 mods. The first one was convenient horses, and this one someone had again sent me a link because in my Let's Play I'd been complaining about the behaviour of my horses, the fact that they always kept running away, the fact that they kept going into fights and so on. Convenient horses, great mod. It gives you a lot of control over your horses. It makes them not go aggressive on everything you meet. It also allows you to summon them with horns, and actually in later versions you can even learn to whistle for your horse at short range. And it works really well with mods like UFO for your followers. They can all have horses, they can all summon horses when you do. Basically for me, another essential mod, even if you're not using followers, an essential mod. If you are using followers, utterly essential. I also covered a mod called Oblivious Horses, so if you didn't want a massive horse overhaul but you did want the horses to stop going into fights, that was an alternative. The third mod I covered was Spectral Horde. Summon spectral horses for you and your followers. Again, it's somebody was watching my Let's Play and I asked, and one of the things I said was I would really like the summon horse, but to be able to summon them all for my followers, and so someone went off and actually made them, which was brilliant. And it did exactly what it says. It allowed you to summon not just one, but as many spectral horses as you like, and your companions, your followers, would mount up with you. Brilliant idea. You know, one of those things, absolutely superb. Thank you very much. And the last mod was Mounted Casting, and this is a very undersubscribed mod actually, which is, you know, I'm quite surprised, but it essentially allows you, if you are using SKSE, to cast spells. It will cast spells from either hand whilst on horseback. There are a few limitations, but nothing much. It requires SKSE because it does not use the standard attack keys. But it's brilliant, especially if you want to do things like heal or summon creatures from your horse without actually getting down. Now, part 32 was actually the first video in which I covered a mod that was flagged as adult. Now, I don't normally cover adult mods, they're not really my thing, but this one was actually a player home called the Dark Tower, Reaper's the Dark Tower. And it's an absolutely superb player home for an evil character, for sort of a necromancer character, evil dark lord, that sort of thing. And of course I was playing that type of character. But there was very much a theme of nudity, torture, etc. Very sort of satanic images. And it fit the mod perfectly. It didn't seem hugely gratuitous, but of course it is adult in nature, and so you should be warned, don't go off and see that video. I didn't show any of the adult material in that video, but of course it links to a mod that is, you know, it's flagged as adult, so be warned. But the mod author is perfectly upfront about it, and says, look, that's what this mod is. It's a player home, but it's an adult player home. But as I said, it was such a well done player home. It really was. I was very impressed with this. It's probably one of my favourite player homes ever, actually. Very atmospheric, great music, great feeling and everything. Now, the next mod this armor looks very similar to sort of steel armor, but it has a more dark ebony look to it, and it's very much designed for magical, mystical type characters, mage type hood, runes on it, etc. Very interesting set of armor actually. Now the mod author is no longer keeping the mod up to date, but it's still perfectly usable today. Still a great set of armor. I also covered a mod called Smart Souls. Now, this was a mod that essentially, instead of having, if you had a common soul that you just trapped, instead of putting it into a grand soul gem, if that was the only thing you had left, it would just let that soul go to waste, because it was very annoying when, you killed a bunny rabbit and it would fill its soul into a grand soul gem and basically waste it. So this mod was for that. However, I received reports that it wasn't working properly, and I checked it and it stopped working for me as well. And so in the Encore video I covered a similar mod called Acquisitive Soul Gems, and I started to use that one and I never had any problems with that one. And finally in that video I covered another horse mod, and this was the Skeleton Demonic Horse. Now this was not a summoned horse, it was a horse you found up near the Greybeards, and was essentially a great big demonic skeletal horse with a flaming tail. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. In fact, this was my horse of choice for quite a lot of my Let's Play. It doesn't have a saddle and it does look very uncomfortable to ride, but it's pretty impressive. Now for part 33 I covered 3 magician type mods. The first one was a great mod called Flyable Broomstick, and this was essentially exactly what it says. It was a broomstick that you could climb on and fly around. There were some glitches with it. It wasn't perfect, but it was a lot of fun. You should definitely check out that video and definitely check out that mod. Now I also covered a mod that is a little unusual for me again. It was the Shredded Triss armor mod. However, I didn't showcase the armor because it's not, again, something I would use. It's for females only, and it's one of the skimpy armor sets, and I've got nothing against those. I have no problem with these armors, and it's very impressive work. It's just not my taste. I usually play male characters anyway, and I'm into sort of dirty, gritty realism. But the reason I covered this mod was the hat. It's got an absolutely superb wizard's hat, which I thought was absolutely perfect for flying around on a broomstick. And I also covered Fendrix Magic Evolved. Now, that is a mod that currently has 272 spells, which is quite a lot. And it has a lot of great spells, a lot of interesting spells, similar to the Midas Magic Overhaul. But I always remember it fondly because it has the Summon Skeletal Warrior spell. So I could summon skeletal warriors, and they didn't actually disappear, so it was like almost having another follower. Great mod. This is one of the ones I really do highly recommend. If you're doing a magic playthrough, like Midas, I mean, I'm not totally sure how compatible it is with Midas, but it's so many spells in both of those overhaul mods that either of them are going to keep you busy for God knows how long anyway. Now, part 34 was my DWEMER Day video, and I covered a lot of dwarven mods that added dwarven artifacts, dwarven mechanical items, and I started with the Space Viking DWEMER Exoskeleton, and this is an absolutely brilliant mod, which just does exactly what it says. It adds a great big exoskeleton on the outside of whatever it is you're wearing, so you can wear it with other armour. And it looks great with a lot of the heavy armors, but it adds speed, it adds strength, the animations are superb. It is a little overpowered, to be honest. You can set it up so you're running at 200 miles an hour, and it's, as I said, a little overpowered, but a lot of fun. Now, this mod actually got updated a few times, and I covered it in a much later video, but 45 I believe, so that did get some updates and is still a great mod today. I covered the DWEMER goggles and scouter mod, which essentially adds goggles, dwarven goggles that will give you night vision. They look great actually, they really do look very good, and with the night vision they're pretty functional actually. This is one of those mods that I keep meaning to make some sort of compatibility patch with my own Predator night vision mod, because I think it would suit them actually. And the other 3 mods I covered were all weapons. There was a DWEMER rifle mod. Now this was prior to Dawnguard, so we didn't have crossbows at the time. And it was still a very good mod. The animation was more like a staff, but obviously it looked like a pistol and it fired bullets. Brilliant idea. But it's not been updated for a while, so I don't believe it was changed to use the sort of crossbow animations, so you still don't need Dawnguard for it. One of the other weapons was the DWEMER Auto Blade, which always reminds me of the Ripper from Fallout 3, but apparently is based upon the Space Marine sword or something from one of those games that I've never played. I'm sorry. But this is a great one. It's a handheld chainsaw, a one-handed chainsaw, a great weapon, and actually, really, for some reason, seems to suit the Dwarven style very, very well indeed. And then there was the Dwarven Condenser, which is essentially a staff that fires steam. But it's a very interesting staff in that it's animated. It has these sort of floating parts at the end, so it looks very cool indeed. And even though it acts like a magical staff, it looks like a sort of, well, vaguely magical, but a mechanical device nonetheless. Now, part 35 was actually a video devoted to a single mod, and that is the Immersive Armors mod. And the Immersive Armors mod was a compilation mod. It started out with a compilation of one mod author's mods, but I believe he also added other mod authors' mods into it, and it has a lot of mods in it, a lot of armor sets, including things I've covered in previous videos like the Vagabond armor, the War Chief armor, and the Einhard armor. So it's got a lot of armors. I mean, too many to list here. Go see the video if you want to see them all. This is still a mod I use today because it's got a lot of great armors, and they all fit the game exceptionally well. Oh yeah, the Witch Plate armor, for example, that one was in this as well. The Dragonhide robes, all of those ones I've covered before, plus many more. Now, part 36 was pretty exciting for me because it was devoted to a new weather mod. A lighting mod, I know. But it was Project Reality Climates of Tamriel. And this was a mod I really enjoyed in Fallout New Vegas, and so I was very pleased to see it arrive for Skyrim. And I was not disappointed. It takes a very different tactic to some other lighting mods in that it tends to make Skyrim look a little harsher, a little less forgiving and more severe. The light looks a little crisper, a little cleaner and colder. I always get the feeling of, well, I get the feeling of being either in early spring or in autumn in Skyrim with this mod. It feels like the air is cold. It's especially noticeable when you go up into the mountains, and I can tell you it's probably the most realistic lighting mod, I think, from the point of view of a Nordic country. I really did like this mod. It's got a lot of very beautiful sunrises, a lot of spectacular effects, and some kind of cool sun glare, but just all round a really, really nice weather mod. Part 37. Well, part 37 was a little interesting. It was a mix of mods. The first one was the Birds of Skyrim mod, which I really did like. And it just added basic birds to Skyrim, the sort of things you would expect to find in towns, pigeons, a lot more chickens, but little chicks, baby chickens. So the farms looked a little busier and a little bit more realistic. But I cannot overemphasize how much immersion it adds to the game to see things like pigeons crawling around the floor in Windhelm. And so this is still a mod I highly recommend even now. And I also covered more village animals, and obviously it's pretty basic. It adds more animals to villages and to farms. It makes those type of areas look a little busier and a little bit more prosperous actually. So obviously it does affect your performance a little bit. Obviously the more animals, the lower your frame rate is going to be. Well, that's going to depend on your system. But if you want Skyrim to look a little bit more, well, a little bit more immersive, to be honest, farms should have animals, and a little bit more prosperous, this is still a great mod. I also covered 83 Willows 101 Bugs HD, and this is a mod that just adds lots of high definition bugs and insects to the game. And it's the sort of thing that a lot of people don't even think about, but actually makes the game really pretty. You see these really interesting insects, and if you're like me and you like looking at the scenery and you like looking at the little details, this is a mod that adds those interesting details. If you're not, if you just want to go around hitting things, this is probably not the mod for you. But again, if you are someone who likes to explore and just appreciate the beauty of Skyrim, this one's for you. For those of you who like functional things, the Conjurable Chest and Crafting Furniture spells is an utter must. Even for non-magic characters, I find this one to be useful. It essentially gives you a summonable chest in which to put all of your junk. And you could argue it was overpowered, you could argue it was unrealistic, but after a while you get so fed up of running backwards and forwards to this chest and that wardrobe and picking up this piece of ebony and that fur and then going off to the crafting station. It's so nice to just summon a chest and pull the things out you need and put them back in when you finish crafting. This is one of those ones I think I would go mad without now. And finally, a fun spell, the Summon Skeletal Horde. You know, these mods are getting pretty well named now. You know, there's no mistaking what this one does. It allows you to summon many skeletons, a horde of skeletons that will do your bidding. The fun thing with this one is they actually form up in formation around you, which is kind of fun. I sometimes felt like I was in a boy band or something with you know, backing dancers. It was a very entertaining mod. And that brings us to the last video I'm going to talk about here, and that is part 38. And this video was one where I was trying to make the Skyhaven Temple my home with all my followers and keep them there. So I covered a few great mods for that. The first one was recruit more blades. Now the idea behind this mod is it allows you to, because in the vanilla game you can only recruit 3 followers into the blades, this mod allows you to basically take up to, I believe it's 20, but a lot of them. So if you're the sort of person who's using UFO or just likes to collect followers and leave them in one place, this was a great mod for that. I covered a mod called My Home is Your Home, a mod for followers. And this is a great alternative actually. So for example, if you're not doing the Blades quest, but you want to have all of your followers stay in one place, this mod allows you to reset their home. So you can get a follower, then go to Whiterun, say this is your home, and when you dismiss him, he will go back there. This is great if you're out in the field and you find a new follower and you want to recruit them. You can dismiss your old one, knowing they will go back to Whiterun, take your new follower, and know that you know they're all congregated in one place rather than have to run around Skyrim to try and find them all. I also introduced the Skyhaven Teleporter. This was one of those mods that I think actually got made after I made a complaint on one of my videos. I may be wrong on that, and I apologise if I am. But I actually said, my God, Skyhaven's in the middle of nowhere, and I don't fast travel. I don't like to fast travel. I like to have some realistic reason, maybe a carriage, maybe a teleport spell. I don't mind teleport spells, but I don't usually like the fast travel. Call me strange, there you go. But this did this. It added once you've been to Skyhaven, you could get a teleport spell that would teleport you back there. Very useful. It gave me an excuse. It gave me a reason to be able to just zip back there. Because for those of you who don't know where Skyhaven is, it is a long trek from anywhere. It really is. And finally, an absolutely brilliant mod called Custom Sigils. Again, this may actually be a mod that got made after I made a complaint. I'm not totally sure, but I know the mod author. He helps me out quite a lot, actually. This is a mod that it adds the ability to craft shields and now cloaks. At the time I made this, it was just shields, but it's also now cloaks that have a sigil on, your logo, whatever. So you can make all yourself and all your followers wear something that identifies them. For my playthrough, he actually made a logo based upon my character's face, which was absolutely brilliant, and I ended up using it for all the thumbnails for my video as well. But it made such a difference to see all of my followers wearing a cloak with this logo on. So this, for me, I love this mod, and it's actually got a lot less endorsements than I think it deserves. You guys should definitely check this out. If you use followers and you want them all to have something on them that identifies them, it's great. Get you a cloak. Get them all a cloak or a shield if you use shields. It really does make a difference. Get a team going. Get a posse going. Okay, guys. Well, we've come to the end of part 4, and it's been a bit of a long video, and we've covered a lot of mods. But we've also come to a very important point in Skyrim's history. For several weeks, we had been watching enviously of the console users who had early access to the DLC. It was kind of annoying, but finally, after a long wait, Dawnguard was upon us.